Bill 67 was introduced at the Ontario Legislative Assembly on February 23rd. Officially named the Cheers to Ontario Act, it seeks to change the way that alcohol is sold and transported in the province, in line with recommendations made by the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario. The goal is to improve access for small brewers to Ontario's alcohol market, thereby growing sales. But microbrewers want more, including opportunities to open their own stores anywhere in the province and sell products at businesses other than strictly the LCBO and beer stores.
Part of us being here and our plan, our mantra, our business plan approach to whatever is to educate people on these types of things. There isn't a choice for how and where to get beer outside of the current system of beer store, LCBO, without it being kind of front and center in the news. People aren't going to talk about it, aren't going to know that there could and should be change.
Bill 67, deemed the Act to Amend the Liquor Control Act, was introduced earlier this winter after a 15-year-old deal between the LCBO and beer stores came in for criticism. The deal limits the LCBO to selling beer in 6-packs or fewer, granting the beer store market dominance in larger quantities. But what most people do not know is that the beer store is foreign-owned by the companies that brew Ontario's top-selling brands, Molson, Labatt, and Sleeman. As foreign firms, they do not pay the same business taxes Ontario brewers do. That makes it tough for brewers such as Darren Smith to compete with the big players.
I would say there's some pretty significant elements in Ontario right now that are not fair in terms of the way that the beer industry runs. I mean, if you look at the market share of craft beer in Ontario, it's just slightly over 4%. So just over 4% of the total beer sold in the province is craft beer. You look at a place like BC, it's 15%. In the U.S., on aggregate, it's well over 10%, and there are some states where it's in excess of 30%. So it's pretty clear that there's something in this province that's holding craft beer back. The beer store is probably the biggest part of that. I mean, the beer store controls close to 80% of the retail sales of beer in this province, and obviously it's owned by our competitors.
But the existing regulations have not kept in pace with the expansion of microbreweries. In the past 5 years, the microbrew industry in Canada has shown a 525% increase in sales. The newest generation of drinkers are looking for more than just a way to get their buzz on. They're looking for flavor and drafts, much different from what has previously been the norm.
So that's the big change, is how many of them are, and how much different the brews are. Chocolate beers, and fruit beers, and pumpkin beers, and a lot of which is old-time purist I don't sort of scoff at. But I mean, the measure of the success is that the big breweries are worried about it, but it's a mature industry, and they have to run to stay even with their market shares.
Ontario's microbrew industry has soared in popularity over the past decade, with 49 breweries opening in just last year alone. That's a 400% increase from 2005, when less than 10 went into business.
Flashback to 100 years ago, there were over 3,000 breweries in North America. And breweries being, the pub on the corner that makes beer or spirits in the back. It's just about, for most craft brewers that I've met, that I've drank beer with, that I've experienced, it's a passion.
There kind of seems to be a common recognition in the craft industry that there's that we're better off working together to grow the size of the craft beer consumer base and grow the market share of craft beer, rather than kind of fighting one another for scraps within the kind of 4% market share that we already have. And that's pretty common across most of North America. You see the craft brewers are, by and large, pretty friendly towards one another.
Debate on Bill 67 is currently underway and expected to continue into next week. But with the explosion of craft brewers in Ontario and the popularity of their product, the promise to reform Ontario's regulations regarding the sale and distribution of beer will remain high. For the 30.ca, this is Jess Kramer reporting.